Mr. BetDavid, why don't you tell us 3 interesting facts about yourself?
3 interesting facts about myself.
That's 3 facts I wouldn't have guessed the cats thing. Having your own agency on the side, how do you split time for that? Would you say PHP is self-sustaining to a level that you can step away and focus on valuetainment? What's your strategy?
Not at all. No. By far, that is my favorite question.
And this is why I sought you out. Is I agree with so many. I see the same level.
I just learned a lot about myself. It's pretty interesting.
This is something I want to know. You said that you put a joke on the resume, but I've never heard you tell the joke. What joke was on that resume?
I have told other people about the joke, but I'll tell you about the joke. So the joke was...
We've got it, Sean. It's us now. We have this.
That's pure gold right there.
And you mentioned too in one of your episodes how, if not, then you get asked a question no one's asked you before. And I got to thinking about it. Here's the question. Who would you rather be?
That's a very good question on who to choose between the two, because...
He made a self-proclamation. He would hold out on sex until he made his first million. Is that true?
Sex is a misdemeanor. The more you miss it, the meaner you get.
There's the man.
Tell us, how are you?
How are you, Mr. BetDavid?
I'm doing very good. Where are you guys based out of?
Georgia. We were just going over that. We're actually, the company principal address is Atlanta, which that's where Sean is currently. I live about 3 hours south of the city. So we're all remote in a way, but you're in Dallas, I assume, is that right?
I'm in Dallas right now. Yes, Dallas, Texas.
I was so hoping we'd get the mural on this. I look behind you.
I can get it in there.
Oh, I love it. I was actually going over it. We was in bed the other night, and I was like, hey, look at this. See if you can identify all these people. I understand there's an empty chair.
There is an empty chair with somebody very crazy one day that will be revealed in a fiction book soon, when I'm no longer the CEO of my current financial firm, because some people will think I'm crazy.
Well, that's just so interesting. I want to know so badly now.
So tell me about your podcast. Give me 30 seconds about the podcast and your background.
Basically, I left the general contracting world. I started my own company and construction management platform. It's a collaborative management to go. And that's kind of the basis of how all this began. And upon creating that, maybe 2 weeks, we'll start having the mobile apps ready for push. From a marketing standpoint, we decided we'd do a show and start covering, putting some personality to things as we go. Very similar to what you do. You have two sides to do.
Awesome.
And my background, basically, I graduated in computer science and information systems, went back to do the MBA. And part of my story is I quit the MBA to pursue this entrepreneur world. So
nice.
That's mine in a nutshell, Sean.
I have a business degree from Albany State. I have an international relations degree from Morehouse, where I currently work as the senior support specialist in the business and economics division. And I also just started my own IT consulting firm, the Lazarus Group.
Nice. Awesome. Well, then lead the way. Let's get right into it.
All right, jump in, which we've already recorded, but we're going to go ahead and bring an introduction. Episode 11, Sean, Mr. Patrick BetDavid. He's you're from Iran, PHP Agency, Valuetainment. Probably not need much of an introduction, but where we want to begin, Sean? I don't even know where to start, because this is so long anticipated for myself.
I think we should start like we do with all the other guests that we have. Mr. BetDavid, why don't you tell us 3 interesting facts about yourself?
3 interesting facts about myself. I never wanted to be married, but I was the guy that was willing to stay single the rest of his life because I enjoy my own company. The other one is I love cats, but I'm allergic to them, but I love cats, crazy about cats. And I'm a diehard fan of caviar. Those are 3 interesting facts.
That's 3 facts I wouldn't have guessed the cats thing. I would think,
yes.
Wow, that is interesting, and I can go on by that. But here, Sean, here's what I didn't tell you yet. I was holding this back. I learned this about Mr. BetDavid. He made a self-proclamation. He would hold out on sex until he made his first million. Is that true?
Absolutely, it is. 17 months.
So you did hold out, and I was going to ask, how well did you make it?
Well, I definitely did make it, although there was a lot of tension. There was a definitely tension building. But I was, and this was tough because I used to partied a lot. So for me, my infatuation was women partying, that chase, that hunt. That was exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I told myself I'm going 17 months, it was something none of my friends believed. Matter of fact, I didn't even believe myself, but it ended up working in my favor.
Sex is a misdemeanor. The more you miss it, the meaner you get.
I like that. Sex is a misdemeanor. No sex is a misdemeanor. I like that a lot.
Wow. I don't know, 17 months. I mean, I guess it's doable. It's just, how fun was it when you finally broke that? I mean, how did you break that out? I got to ask.
I think she was hospitalized for a couple of days.
See, I think I've been the one hospitalized. Well, if 10 seconds to get me hospitalized, but man, well, but like I said, I mentioned earlier about, having, a split between doing a channel, doing a show, and then, having your own agency on the side. How do you split time for that? Would you say PHP is self-sustaining to a level that you can step away and focus on valuetainment? What's your strategy?
Not at all. No. Like, during the pandemic, I mean, we've had to make major adjustments in the company for it to work. And it's not been easy. It's been a challenge to be able to make all the adjustments with the insurance company. We have 15,000 agents, 130 offices nationwide, 500,000 square feet of space, give or take. And we have investors, De La Hoya, we have carriers, partners, vendors, board meeting, lawyers, all these other things you got to deal with. So it takes a lot. But creating content for me was something where I just knew we're going in a direction that if you don't create content and find a way where you are authentic with the approach of what you know a lot about that you can bring value to, and you can be consistent about it and run it like a real business where you're disciplined about it, you can have an edge. One of the best phone calls I ever get from my competitors is when they call me and they tell me, Pat, how do you have a family of 3 kids, husband, you're married with 3 kids, 8, 6, 4, you run a company with 15,000 agents, you have investors, you create content, you research people, you interview them, you stay in shape, you work out. How do you do all of this stuff and make it work? By far, that is my favorite question, because the interpretation of that question is, I just don't think I can compete with you. And I love it, because for me, they used to say Jordan was a vampire. Reggie Miller once said in the documentary, The Last Dance, he says, we were there to shoot the Space Jam. He says, Michael would play with all of us for 3 hours. Then he would go to shoot. Then he would go to train with Grover. Then he would wake up 6 o'clock in the morning. We thought he was a vampire. That is a form of psychological victory over your competitors, because they just don't think they can do what you're doing. So look, it depends on what your vision is in life and what your vision is with your business. If it's big, you need to be very specific about what you want to do, and you need to be willing to do certain things that others don't want to do.
I see. And so content creating, was this started because you had these thoughts and you had your perspectives and you just wanted to share that? I mean, what was the drive to start actually producing content rather than, just sharing a few videos here and there, teaching videos? I see you throw some great ideas, and this is why I sought you out. Is I agree with so many. I see the same level. And so, what drove you into just saying, hey, I'm going to do this? Because it's a far step. I mean, I'm learning how much requirement is behind this.
Really, it's a lot of work. Yeah, that's the thing. It is a lot of work, because you got to be prepared. You got to do research. And if you interview guests and you're not doing proper research and you're winging your questions, eventually you're going to see that you're not really scaling it. Subscribers are not showing up.
Right.
People are not watching. Your content's not getting as many views as you wanted to get, because there's a reflection of a lack of accountability and a lack of preparation. And you see a lot of people trying to wing creating content. Creating content is not winging. You can't just wing it and go in there and saying, hey, I'm going to create a video and I'm going to talk about something because my guys like the jokes I tell when I'm at the bar drunk. It's a complete different philosophy than you actually wanting to run a real, content type of a deal. Even if you look at Rogan, who, pro marijuana, he's, talks about certain things with LDS or whatever else he talks about. The guy is extremely disciplined, He creates content regularly. He's interviewing regularly. He researches regularly. He reads regularly and runs UFC and is married with 3 kids and is still getting it done. Then you look at strong business people that they build an empire on a complete different side. You see the same thing as well. You see it with athletes who, like a LeBron, is a family guy, got the kids, got the businesses, got the movies, got the shows, got the game, got a social side. It's again, it all goes back to how big you want to build what you want to build. Now, as far as coming up with content, you take a sheet of paper. It's very simple. Take a sheet of paper and a pen, write out things you're most passionate about, and write out things that you know a lot about. So what do you know a lot about? What are you passionate about, right? So you write them out. I'm passionate about this. A book I read 15 years ago written by a British diplomat is called Leaderless Revolution. And he says people typically start a revolution or a movement based on 3 things: what they hate, what they love, and what bothers them. So if you make a list and you say, okay, what do I hate, what do I love, and what bothers me? I can't stand it when this happens. I can't stand victimhood mentality. I hate being broke. I love kids. I love dogs. I love comedy. I love entertainment. Whatever it is, when you write those things out, then you look at them and say, okay, I just learned a lot about myself. It's pretty interesting. What do you know a lot about? I know a lot about money. I know a lot about investments. I know a lot about working out. I know a lot about health. I know a lot about the baseball. I know a lot about Lakers. I know a lot about Walt Disney. Based on that, if you can combine those together with some kind of a value in entertainment, now you're going to find an audience. So that's one way to go about creating content.
Got it. I got it. So what do you do? Let's say, how do you select your guests? I know you've got a great panel. I mean, you've gone through quite a few, but what criteria, like what makes you say, hey, I want to go after this person, or hey, I want to talk with this one?
I'll tell you the mistake I made. I made the mistake of going after guests that I thought other people were interested in and never did well, because I interviewed an astronomer, somebody who was an astronaut one time, 35 minutes. You know why? I had no interest. And it was felt, and the audience felt it. I have no interest in astronauts, 0. Other people do. I have this much interest. My oldest son has more interest in astronauts than I do. I could care less about astronauts and what they do as a career. So if I interview something I have no interest for, I will ruin the interview. Now, say you love astronauts. Your entire life, you read all the books, everything. You would crush me in an interview on the topic of astronauts, because I don't have any interest. So now if I go out there and interview the mob and I interview mobsters, now you may say, I would never interview a mobster. Well, I grew up watching all the mob movies, right? Yep. And I grew up in the streets, so there's certain parts of it that kind of interest me. So when I do the interviews, for me, I'm very interested in doing a mob interview. So what happens? The audience feels it. It gets tens of millions of views. Then there's other people that are also interested in that topic because they like the way how I interview deep in the topic of the mob, right? Yeah. So the moment I realized the people I need to interview are people that I am interested in and topics that match what I'm interested in. If I put those 2 together, then you get results.
Yeah, because you being the interviewer, you have a responsibility to flow this thing,
Exactly.
And yeah, it seems like if you get lost in the conversation, you got to take responsibility for that. Yeah, I can see that. So, well, Robert Kiyosaki, I'd followed him for quite some time. And then when I noticed that you and him did a 2-part episode recently about that, of course, I tuned in quick for that. That's one of my favorites there. But he gave you a little piece of advice there. And then I waited to see what you were going to do about David Icke. I see you went out, you put it up, the David Icke interview.
Yes. He did give me advice, but he said, it's better to be a peacetime leader. I'm just not a peacetime leader. So I can't be something I'm not. So, but I can totally understand different phases of life. A lot of times when you talk, a lot of time when kids talk to their parents typically are more worried about safety. And like, oh, be careful, baby. Be careful, baby. Be careful, baby. And they forget that they used to take risks years ago.
Yeah.
So now they're imposing their 50, 60-year-old self-fear onto the 20-year self-fear. So sometimes you have to know that even myself as a parent, I got 3 kids. I'm like, buddy, be careful, buddy, be careful. It's like, you did that when you were 6 years old. You did that when you're 8 years old. You can't really protect your kids from everything. that they're going to do. They're going to make some mistakes. Their hearts are going to be broken. People are going to screw them over. They may get punched in the face if they say the wrong thing. They may get bullied at times. You can't go and tell a 12-year-old kid, you can't touch my son. I'm going to whoop your ass. You can't do that. They have to go through it themselves, right?
Right.
So there's an element of that. So when he told me that, I sat there and I said, where's the counsel coming from? Here's a man that's very successful. He's at a different phase of his life. He's gotten a lot of criticism for some of the views he's taken. And I'm at a different phase of my life. I'm at a phase where I don't mind getting in the ring and getting a black eye and, and I knew how I had interviewed David Icke. I didn't interview David Icke saying he's right, he's this. If you watch the interview, it's actually a pretty heated interview. It's not like,
you actually took exactly right. You challenged him more than I expected, and it seemed like more than your other guests as well.
Yeah,
you
and I think a lot
hard.
of people were expecting me to just sit there and validate everything as if everything he's saying I agree with. I don't. I just gave him the platform, and that's one of the reasons why till today YouTube never took our interview down, because YouTube looked at it and said, okay, you didn't just let him talk and say everything, you pushed him on everything. And I think that's one of the things YouTube is asking for from content creators.
I was thinking that same thing when I watched it, because I was wondering, obviously Brian Rose, lost his channel and lost that show with him, and he started his own platform just to be able to interview this guy. And then when yours remained, I looked at the difference, and that's what I saw is, basically the way you interviewed him was not more or less inciting others to think this way, but to share the content. Made perfect sense. So I got it. Well, you mentioned back when you were, first starting or getting ready to start your agency, and even prior to that, you were with Morgan Stanley. Is this correct?
Yes.
Okay. When you did this, I remember this is something I want to know, and you've brought it up a couple of times on other shows, but you haven't in the show that I watched, and any piece of content you've had revealed to it on your resume. You mentioned, which I know you mentioned the Burger King, you mentioned Haas and Dodge, you went there with it, but then you said that you put a joke on the resume, but I've never heard you tell the joke. What joke was on that resume? Go ahead.
I have told other people about the joke, but I'll tell you about the joke. So the joke was, a father has 3 sons. He tells his 3 sons when he dies, he wants each one of them to drop $1,000 into the coffin when he dies. Okay, it's out of respect. So the day comes, dad dies. First son shows up, he drops 10 $100 bills. Everybody starts crying, oh my gosh, that's what dad wanted. Second son comes, he drops 20 $50 bills. Everybody starts crying. The third one was an accountant. He comes up, he writes a $3,000 check, throws it in there, takes $2,000, walks away. So that was the joke, and Morgan loved the joke.
Yeah. So is that you think that's what sold it? Is that what it was?
I think what sold it is the fact that we've never seen an approach like this, and people are watching to see exactly the way you sell them is exactly the way you're going to sell the clients, and that's how they probably processed it.
I see. So I don't know if you told it on, any recording before, but I had to pull that out.
I've never said it on Valuetainment. I've never said it on my YouTube channel. I've never said it on the YouTube channel.
We've got it, Sean. It's us now. We have this.
That's pure gold right there.
Yeah, it is. And, and you mentioned too, in one of your episodes, how, if not, then you get asked a question no one's asked you before. And I got to thinking about that, and I said, okay, I need to pull a question for this guy, and let's see. And this is going to be very, relevant to what you do, I think. Here's the question. Who would you rather be? And this goes back into some little history here, but J.P. Morgan or Nikola Tesla? You got to think about the difference between these two men. They were same time period, and J.P. Morgan was the investor for much of what Tesla was doing. And I think about this like Tesla, he's an engineer, he's a great brain. He lacked the funding to fund just every idea that he had, which is where JP Morgan came in. And would you rather be Tesla, the guy with the ideas, but maybe lacks the funding, or would you rather be more the shot caller, which where JP Morgan comes in? And some of the decisions, obviously, with JP Morgan weren't very, very on the up and up with moral conditions. So, how do you think, as an entrepreneur yourself and a big time entrepreneur, how does, which way do you push?
That's a very good question on who to choose between the two, because for me, I always think the creator is always going to be creating, but sometimes the creator is not very good with money, and they're naive and they're just kind of creating just to create, and they get crushed by somebody that knows power plays. For somebody that's grown up in an environment of business where he knows there's a lot of bullying going around, and if you don't know how to stand up for yourself, you'll be crushed, I'd probably go to JP Morgan Chase route.
Wow. You know, I didn't have an anticipation of what you were going to guess with that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, my answer is both. I just want to be both, and I just had to put in the work to be both.
It's tough because you know, when you're like an artist, you know, you ask the question and say, would you rather be an incredible painter who's very good at painting the painting, or would you rather be the guy that runs the museum that has the guys painting to be in the painting? I'd much rather own the museum, you know, rather than be the artist. I want to be able to appreciate the guy's art. And unfortunately, most artists never get a chance to enjoy their art. And I don't think Tesla ever got a chance to enjoy his own final product. I want to be able to enjoy the final product.
Yeah, I concur with that. And, you know, I joke when I say I want to be both, but JP Morgan was it's where I started leading myself to once I put in deep thought. Now I say this as, you know, a little younger, I would have answered that differently. You know, before I spent, you know, I've been in the corporate world now for about 8-10 years, you know, depending on which way to call it. And, you know, as the creator, because I was, you know, that guy, you know, I do have an engineering head on me sometimes too. The computer science brought out a whole different, you know, side of my head I didn't even know I had. You know, it was neat to think logically and systematically that way. So being creative is fun. And I have an area in my shop, my garage here, where I you know, work on little inventive type things. But at the end of the day, it's not. I'm the
exact opposite, Clay.
Really,
I believe that the wheel's already been invented, so I don't need to do it. There's a joke about there's two bums on the corner. One says, "I will work for food." The guy next to him has a sign that says, "I'll supervise him for a snack." I'm the guy that's going to supervise for the snack.
Well, yeah, and that's I mean, it's almost like delegation, you know, instead of trying to micromanage. Same way, but that's what I was getting at, is that I've evolved in that sense. You know, it's like you said, I don't want to reinvent the wheel anymore. I want to try to take this to another level for myself, and you know, build more of a dynasty, more so than just, you know, just have one thing created and take ownership for that. Patents don't mean as much to me as marketing and business and, you know, scaling now. That's the evolution of my mindset in the business world. You know?
There's the other part of it that you got to also know that Tesla can't be Chase and Chase cannot be Tesla. So meaning it's not a possibility. Let me explain. Shaq cannot be Kobe. No, Kobe can go in and try to practice Shaq's plays. It's not going to work out. And Shaq can go practice Kobe's plays. No matter how many hours Shaq tries to be like Kobe, it's not going to happen. There's also areas where it's your strength that you got to play to your strength. Sometimes if you try to play to your weaknesses, you're going to feel like a fool. It's like the story of, if you tell a fish to climb a tree, it's going to feel like an idiot. That's what Einstein once said. So it's also knowing which one matches your strengths.
I got it. That is an interesting question, and I'm going to ask that question from here forward. I created that question just for yourself, but I'm going to start, you know, I'm going to start doing a dialogue here. I'm going to keep up with this and see who all answers that way. But I think that's kind of where you have to define yourself eventually, is which one are you going to be if you're going to, you know, try to excel in business. You know, and I don't know. You mentioned too. All right, let's just go all the way back. You came to Iran, what year was that? I didn't pick that up yet.
November 28, 1990.
1990. And you were what? I'm assuming it's from 10 to 12 age, basically. 12 years old.
I was 12 years old.
You was 12. And I mean, but you went to Germany and you did not know the language. Is this true?
Not at all. Zero.
How was that? 10, 12 years old, not knowing a language? I mean, what kind of, because communication is crucial, you know, in this world particularly. And then for you being in that situation, you know, what was that like?
I mean, it was rough. You know, I couldn't speak. I didn't have the ability to speak. But when you're a kid, you learn languages a lot sooner than adults do, because you simply go to school and you don't have a choice. You're just kind of forced to learn how to speak the language. And within a couple months, you're speaking German. I mean, literally, that's what it's like. And then you come from Germany to US and I'm not speaking English. And then I need to learn how to speak English. Believe me, both German and English are much easier than Assyrian and Armenian. I promise you that. So Farsi, okay. Armenian, Assyrian, Hebrew, those are tough languages. English and German is very easy.
I wouldn't have pegged that either. So you come up. What was the difficult words in English to learn? Which ones did you struggle with?
Good question. Government. I couldn't say government. I would say government. Okay. Island. I would always say Gilligan's Island.
You said Island. Oh, you did it.
I watched Gilligan's Island last night. Okay. And then the other one that really ticked me off was Wednesday. I would say Wednesday. Wednesday.
I can see that because it's clearly there. The end's there.
So those were the 3 words.
I'm from here, and those words trip me up after.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that earlier. Sean's a Morehouse man. He's I noticed when you were interviewing Shy, what I think it was Howard and whatnot was brought up, and then Morehouse. So how did you know about Morehouse? Where'd that come in? I got to bring
one of the guys. When I started the company, Dr. Len Cooper, he and his wife Tasha, they have 2 boys, Jahi and Akil, and they went through. One of them graduated from Howard, and the other one is a Morehouse kid. And I know those are some of the best schools you can go to in the African American community with a lot of respect if you go through those schools.
Sean,
It
changed my life. Definitely changed my life.
I bet.
Yeah. So Sean, you went there, and what was your degree with them? I want to get that out and get that clear. What did you do at Morehouse exactly?
What did I create when I was a student there?
Yeah, like what was your time period there? Because that's kind of important to your story, and I want Mr. David to understand that.
Okay, so I went there as a non-traditional student when I returned from Japan. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had graduated with my business degree, moved to Japan, and then everyone was like, well, you should go to Morehouse. So I said, well, didn't want to go to a HBCU. Was a Republican my whole life. Didn't want to do a liberal arts education. And I said, you know what? I'll try it. I'll go for a semester. I'll do a semester just to shut everybody up. Went there and just fell in love with the place.
Wow.
The view. I met a Jewish Holocaust survivor. The second month I was enrolled there, he came to speak to my class, and just the exposure and the network and the brotherhood. It fundamentally changed who I am and made me the man that I am today.
What views changed politically for you when you went to Morehouse?
Politically, I leaned more towards being a libertarian and kind of winged away from full conservatism because I was a staunch conservative. And then when I had to defend some of my ideas and ideologies because you can tell a Morehouse man from a mile away, but you can't tell him nothing else. So they're going to challenge you on every point of view and everything that you believe in. And I had to start defending some of my opinions. And by defending them, I started hearing how some of them sounded so incorrect.
There you go. Interesting. So you went from a conservative, you went to Morehouse, you became a libertarian.
Yes.
Are you a Thomas Sowell guy?
No.
Do you know who he is?
I do not. That's why I know I'm not him.
Look him up.
I will.
Thomas Sowell. In the painting behind me, you will see Milton Friedman over here. Milton Friedman, the Nobel Prize economist. Him and Thomas Sowell were very close.
Okay.
Thomas Sowell's a semi-genius.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since you brought up the mural, well, how does Tupac fit the mural to you?
I'm class of 96. He died in 96. And there's a part of me that relates to Tupac because Tupac didn't do well with authority. He didn't like to be told what to do. His creative side would always kind of struggle with authority. And I mean, I grew up to all of his music. Everything he's ever done, I've pretty much followed. Everything, all of his songs, everything.
Interesting there.
And as a kid, here's what you need to know that my wife always teases me. I was a diehard Jada Pinkett fan growing up as a kid. Like that was my girl. Like, you know, when people would say, you know, you're 18 years old, you're in the military, who you want to be? Oh my gosh, Pamela Anderson. Oh, because at 18, everybody was a Pamela guy, or they were a, you know, there was all these names people were for. But I was a team Jada Pinkett at 18. From when I saw the movie Jason's Lyric, I fell in love.
Interesting at all. Well, I don't know who the one behind you there looks like in a racing outfit.
Ayrton Senna. That is a Formula race car driver. I watched his documentary, fell in love with the guy, and my daughter is named after his last name. So his last name is Senna, S-E-N-N-A. My daughter's name is Senna BetDavid.
Wow.
Oh,
I never would have known that. I never could have put that together if not.
I thought that was Dale Earnhardt.
See,
I was like, Dale Jr.
and Sean's from the South. You don't catch that. I mean, okay, well, bringing that in with NASCAR, I mean, that's something you follow. I've never heard you mention anything about racing.
I went out there with Carl Edward. There's a video of me somewhere on social media where Carl and I'm in his car. He's going 188 miles an hour racing his brother. This is like in 2007, 2008. I used to go to all the NASCAR races. I was always with the owner, Roush. I was always with him. I'd go in the pits all the time. And yeah, it was a great experience. NASCAR's yeah, all you need to do is go. I mean, I never cared for NASCAR until I went one time. I went one time, I got hooked.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been to the Daytona, the 500 a couple of times. I was younger. And actually in college, I played college baseball. And our coach, which is from Jersey, I was telling Kai before you came on, living in the South, being in South Georgia particularly, and I go to college. I was recruited by one coach. I get there, he's gone. They fired him over the summer, so in comes a new coach, and of all people, he's from Jersey, and I didn't know, but he shows up, and this is, I don't know where your athletics stands. I know he's into bodybuilding, but athletically, this is, that's all. Baseball was my life. That's all I cared about. It didn't matter to me. I mean, I actually was like the jock nerd in school. It was kind of odd, but I hid it. See, I graduated number 2 in my class, and I was just
Get out of here.
I hid it. I didn't want everybody to know. If I wanted to push the jock side. I liked the sports. It was weird. I was one of those weird guys in school. Voted most likely to succeed and was still MVP of the team. So it's just I was one of those guys. So, but I had to pick a side most of the time in my life. I had to pick, and now, strangely enough, now it seems like I want to pick the nerd. But in school, it was more cool to be the jock, right? So that's the way I looked at it. But in school, at playing college ball, and this guy comes in, and nobody knows anyone at this time, and the coach is brand new. He basically cut everything down to square one. He said, "No one has a position on my squad." We had a couple of All-Americans who was playing there, and they didn't have a position sealed. You had to come back and earn it. For me, being the young guy, I was 17 at the time. I was still young. I was the youngest guy on the team, obviously, but it actually opened up the door for me. It's the greatest experience for me.
What position you played?
Well, I was always, because I was in a smaller school growing up. I mean, most of your better players end up in the infield or on the hill, pitching, which I did both, but I was shortstop. But when I got to college, I learned that I could run. That was my strong suit, obviously. So they tried me in center field. Here's why they tried me there. I was not there to do this. I was there as an infielder, and they had other young infielders they wanted to try out too. So they're like, well, let's just put this guy in center field and see what he can do, because there's a second baseman we think's better than you. Let's put him here. Let's just throw you out in the outfield. And I'd be damned if I wasn't born. I mean, after making freshman of the year, it was like I should have done this my entire life. It was crazy, but that's where I developed, baseball. And it was because this crazy Jersey coach just tried me out there. That's the way it worked.
Wow, what a story.
It's fun. I could go on and on about that story, because baseball, that's all I cared about, man. I hid the grades. I was making the grades well, and I just didn't want to. That was the side of me I wanted to show everyone.
Speaking of passions, Mr. BetDavid, you used to have a passion for dancing. Is that correct?
Yes, very much so.
Are you still?
You still?
Still got
I tell you what. If the owner of the club I used to go to in Nashville, Tennessee, has all the tapes, the world will not believe that's me. So I can tell you. If the owner of this club has any of the videotapes, I guarantee you the world's gonna say they'll be shell shocked when they see me on stage dancing. And one day it may come out. So if it comes out, remember I told you, if it comes out, you're gonna be shocked. I'm preparing for it.
I too used to be a dancer. My name was Sergeant Dangler.
It's a good nickname. Did that ever work, by the way, with the ladies?
It never worked. I don't know.
Yeah. There's some things that work. There's some things that don't work. My friend used to have a line. He'd go to the ladies, the sergeant, I was so funny. He'd go up to him and he'd say, I guarantee you I have the biggest dangling in the club tonight. and they would say, let me feel it. No. Why not? He says, no. It says, then I don't care. It says, well, then if you want to know, I want to know. So let's go to my car. And 3 out of 10 times they would agree. But by the time he would go in the car, it never mattered if it was or not. It was too late.
It was over then.
I would always say, tell me it didn't work. He says, it worked. I'm like, this is such a ridiculous approach. And by the way, he was 5'6", 125 pounds.
Hold on, I'm writing that down.
Go ahead, I'll give you the moment.
125. He would just go up and say, I guarantee you I'm the biggest in the club. Let me feel you. No. How can I find out? Let's go to my car. Closing ratio of 30%.
That's not bad numbers if you really think about it.
That's Babe Ruth status. That's my status.
This is one area you got to think 30% is great. You know, if I'm batting 300, you know, then shoot, it'd be worse than it was when I was younger, Sean.
I'm telling you, it was 5'6", 125.
Go, boy.
5'6", 125.
Oh, boy. That brings me to a point. You were a good wingman coming in. That's true. You kind of self-proclaim as a good wingman, and I get that.
If you were with me, you're gonna have a very good time. If you were with me, you're probably gonna put your condom to use. If you were we had a very interesting system that worked so effectively. It was insane. So effectively, it was insane.
Oh man, and that's good because see, Sean and I, when we go back, see, we reconnected just to do this show. You know, just to do this ProTalk show. You know, it's kind of strange how it went out. I was, you know, I like to talk, and people recognize that in me. Some people don't like that. Some people enjoy it. But so I was getting some marketing advice, and they was like, "Well, you seem to run your mouth quite a bit. Why don't you do this?" And originally we were just going to do podcasts, and it just kind of, in the blink of an eye, said, you know, let's just film it. Screw it. I don't care. Let's do it. And I had to think of a personality. And I was like, because I want to do this. I want to have someone to bounce ideas off of, you know. And I got to thinking, you know, I considered a couple different people. Then it just like dawned on me. It's like, okay, there's only one person that can do this with me. And we actually, you know, we was great friends years ago. How long has it been, Sean, since between that? What was that gap?
Probably like 4 or 5 years.
At least, you know. And it's
I think when I moved to Japan was the last time we'd hung out. Clay actually took me to the airport.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. I did. And you know, and truthfully, you know, Patrick, I had a man, it's time in my life, you know, about that same period there. I went through some rough things, you know, losing a baby, truthfully, 19 days old. And I kind of went off the grid. Like, seriously, I dropped and went. It changes. It changed everything for me, you know, in ways that I cannot explain, you know, and I didn't even mean to get into that for this episode with you. Honestly, it just kind of fell in right here, but that's kind of why Sean and I had such a big gap, you know, not many people know this, but yeah, we didn't speak, like I said, at least 4 or 5 years. So when I started putting this show together and I was like, well, who am I going to have? And it hit me at Sean. I had to actually find him on social media just to be able to reach to him. But the great thing is, this is Sean. I mean, I sent him a message, you know, just a blank random message, and he called back that night. So, and in fact, I'd not been so long since I'd heard him. I was like, who is this?
We talk every day now.
Yeah.
We talk like we talked 16 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, it's like the time gap wasn't there. That's a good point there, because it feels just the same. To me, he sounds the same. Now, you put on a little weight, Sean? You gonna be honest?
I put on a lot of weight. I have one stretch mark.
Oh man. Well, you know, how do you feel about that? Actually, let me ask you that, Mr. Patrick. With a co-host, I see you don't really co-host much. You do this solo. You know, was there any thought to having a co-host at some point?
Well, here's what we're doing. We're launching a podcast. I've had 2 guys that are in town now. One of them is officially the president of Valuetainment, and the other one's going to be the director of advertising for Valuetainment. You know, Valuetainment is going to be a major media company competing with everybody in the marketplace.
I did not know that.
One of them had a wife and 6 kids. He moved his entire family here last week. And the other one was from Miami. He just moved out here this week. They're both cash millionaires. They made their money and they're out here, and we're going to be co-hosting a show together. And it's very interesting because it's going to be a Jewish, a Christian, and a Middle Eastern walk into a bar. Okay. So one's a Jew, one's a Christian, and the other one is me. So it's going to be, and they have very, very strong opposing opinions and ideas. It's going to be beautiful. So we'll be launching that probably in the next 2 weeks. By the way, you're the first to know. I've never announced it anywhere. So it's probably going to be in the next couple of weeks.
That's good, and you know,
I
and
look
that
forward to seeing it.
Absolutely. See, and we're the same way. You know, we're not opposing views, especially particularly politically. You'd be surprised. He and I were right there on the same page. But you know, since we're talking about that, that is something I wanted to project. Is I wanted someone that he knows nothing about the industry that I've spent the last several years in. You know, and so me launching a platform, you know, where construction management would take place. He knew nothing of the content. So I was like, okay, gives me a chance to bounce ideas off someone that doesn't know. I'm not speaking adding, but he's learning with me. So that was part of the thing as well. But also, you know, we I don't know if you followed any of our other shows, we get into the culture. We went live last Friday, you know, with, let's see, what was this? A Marine who was white background, a lady who's Hispanic, and Sean, and then we help me remember them all, Sean. Then we had
Dr. Williams, the economics. She's the economic professor at Morehouse.
Yeah. So we kind of we did what our goal with that is. This is something that, you know, I'd like to hear your comments on. Actually, is, you know, everybody's divided. And it seems like national media is pushing a division that's even, you know, it's even crazier. It's nuts. So we decided to combat that a little and say, okay, we're going to bring, you know, it's easy to find two people who are alike and find unison, but let's bring people from different cultures and let's hash out our differences and still find unison. So that's kind of what we're doing. And we've got future shows planned where we're going to continue to do that. And this you know, this crisis that, not Corona, but, you know, with the protesting and everything after George Floyd, I think it's the best time to do such a thing, you know, to try to bring unity and bringing people of different perspectives is the only way we're going to grow in that context, you know. But yeah, I do invite you to go back and watch that. We end up going live for about 3 hours, and it was not all agreeing, you know. It was great, but at the end, I sure felt like I'd grown.
Yeah, people fear what they don't understand, and they hate what they fear. So only by educating people and meeting people where they are and where they're at, and putting yourself in their shoes, you may not know exactly the path that they walked in life, but it kind of helps you understand where they're coming from.
No, it's a challenge out there right now. Now, that makes sense now. I didn't know, like you said, Valuetainment was going public like that. But is this kind of makes sense now with your episode you created about Democrats owning the national media over Republican? I mean, is this kind of your response to that in a way? Or, you know, because you made a very good point. Republicans, they do fail. Yeah, there's Fox News, but they're not investing the same way to share a narrative that the Democrats are. Is this kind of tied to that?
Well, for me, the one concept that I want to protect, and I'm going to do my part on it, is capitalism. All the other stuff, to me, you don't hear me talk a lot about social issues. I'm not sitting there doing pro-life, pro-choice, gay marriage. That stuff is not stuff I'm on. That's more libertarian position economically. I'm purely economy, finance, capitalism. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we'll be going in that direction. I just believe the world's a better place if we have more entrepreneurs, more intrapreneurs, more jobs being created, more people making money that they no longer need to rely on the government. And the question we need to be asking is the following. Here's by far the most important question to be asking. Who benefits from America being divided? That's all there is to it. If you can answer that question, that'll tell you everything. Yeah. Who doesn't want to see America united? Who benefits from America being divided? Who does it? If America is divided, do media companies do better? Probably. If America is divided, does a certain political party do better? Possibly. If America is divided, does a certain political party, are they able to control a certain community's votes for even longer? Probably. If America is divided, do some enemies, some nations out there that are not fans of America, do they win? China, Russia, Iran, do they win? Probably. if America's divided, you see where I'm going with this. So you got to kind of process it from that standpoint. And then unfortunately, my parents got a divorce because both sides of the family, they pin them against each other all the time. Look, I understand pitting people against each other if you're Dana White. I understand pitting people against each other if you're Don King. I understand pitting people against each other if you're Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith. I understand pitting people against each other if it's a sales office. I totally get that. But I don't understand pitting people against each other when it comes down to politics and belief system, because if you do that with a nation, you are playing the game of deception, and it's very dirty when you do that in politics. And that's what's happening right now in America, where both sides are very careful on what they say. Oh my gosh, if I say the wrong thing, I may, they're going to come attack me. It's going to be a cancel nation. And I never came to America to be worried about words. I came to America to be free and have my own thoughts and be respectful, and you have the choice. I made a video the other day about white privilege. I don't know if you guys saw that or not on Instagram. If you haven't seen it, you got to go watch it. When you see it, there were other content creators that came out, just nonstop. It got like 4,500 comments, okay?
Wow.
And I said, this is my position of what I experienced. And it was prompted because I posted something about being in the military and being Middle Eastern in the military. This lady sent me a message, white lady, and she said, I am so sorry. I feel bad for you because I know what it is to have my own white privileges. And if you had the white privileges I had, I'm sure you wouldn't have experienced what you experienced in the military. I'm like, listen, lady, first of all, I live a much more privileged life than you. And I started off with a family where parents got a divorce and my dad worked at a 99-cent store in Inglewood for 15 years. Please don't feel bad for my life and what I do and the life I've lived. So I don't like people imposing their fears and insecurities on me, and let me decide what kind of a life I want to build. And a lot of that right now is imposing belief systems on people, and others are somehow supposed to buy it, and I refuse to buy it.
I see. I said, Sean, we covered this, quite a bit. I missed that. Is it just on Instagram or is it like on YouTube?
Yeah, you can find on this. If you go on my Instagram, you should be able to see it.
I'm going to find it there, but if you don't mind, since we cover that as well, I mean, when it comes to white privilege, you got a couple of thoughts on that we can get in. I want to hear kind of what you think about that, because I experienced it as well. Sean and I, we cover it in so much of our stuff.
I started an insurance company. When I started an insurance company, one of our main carriers is a Fortune 100 company everybody knows about. Starts with the letter A, ends with the letter G. And it's 3 letters. You can pretty much figure out what's the letter in the middle, okay? And we start writing business with them. And at first, while we're going for a year, there's a change in leadership, and they change the positions. And there was a meeting in Napa Valley when they were introducing the new leadership team. And I went. I took my wife and my dad and my 6-month-old son at the time, newborn, firstborn. So we go, and I'm working to try to make this business work. We're in survival mode, and we go in there. And the new CEO is a very, very powerful guy named Bob Ben Moshe. I'm a big fan of his. He's a beast. He had cancer. He was on his deathbed. He had 2 years to live when they hired him. Okay, I mean, this is like a legendary, possibly one of the greatest CEO in the history of financial services. He's incredible at what he does. So he leaves his vineyard in Dubrovnik, Croatia. He used to be the former CEO of MetLife. And they call him. And he said, you're the only person we hire. And they said, okay. He took the job. Came out. They're doing a meeting in Napa Valley. They introduced a number 2 and a number 3 guy. I leave, and my wife and I, we're like, hey, we signed up for this cooking class. I said, babe, you go. I'm going to spend time with the kid. You take my dad. My wife and my dad are very close, and so they went. While they're there, the number 2 guy is positioning to see which one of the relationships that they have as an insurance agency like mine, which one of them he cuts and which one of them he keeps. So he starts talking to my wife, and he says, let me ask you a question. How do you feel about Armenians? And my wife says, excuse me? How do you feel about Armenians? I said, what do you mean? Do you trust Armenians? Because we've done some business with some insurance folks, and these Armenians have cost us millions of dollars because they've done so much fraudulent business. And my wife's like, you understand my husband's Armenian? He says, no, I know. That's why I'm asking you. He says, if I had a problem with Armenians, why would I have married my husband? And my dad is listening. My dad doesn't like fights. He's like a complete opposite of me. Very nice guy, chill guy. So they're coming back, and my wife and my dad are talking. My dad says, please don't say anything to Pat because you don't want to say this. My wife's like, if I don't tell him, he finds out, it's going to be bad news. So my wife comes in. She says, I have to tell you what happened. My dad is nervous. I can see it. And my wife says, here's what this man said about you. I said, really? I said, yes. I lost it. I couldn't stand it because I don't like to be judged by me being from Iran. And even when I first became an advisor, day after 9/11, I walked into a client's house who were Mormons. They said, we don't do business with people like yourself. If you have somebody who's a Mormon, send them to me. I said, I'm the best guy in my office. He said, we don't care. We don't do business like people like, because 9/11 had just happened. You know, I'm a Middle Eastern looking guy. You don't see people looking like this all the time. So anyways, my wife comes back and she tells me the story about this man asking about me being Armenian and his concern. So she tells it to me. I said, okay, I'm not comfortable with this because I want to be judged based on the results I get, not based on me being Middle Eastern. Long story short, we come back. I get word from my consultants that they're about to drop my contract because the new guy is afraid of us doing fraudulent business. I said, no problem. I said, when are they having this meeting? He said, next week. I said, I'm going to call a meeting this week. I had my attorneys call him up, and we set up a meeting this week. They flew in from Houston to my office to have a meeting with me. They come in. I have my executive team sitting next to me, my wife, my executive team, everybody's sitting there. Their compliance, everybody's sitting right there. The consultants are in the middle saying, Pat, please don't bring anything up. It's not my style. So he says, okay, let's go ahead and get the meeting started. I said, before you say anything, I'd like to say something. He says, what's that? I said, look, you know, I came to America to be judged based on the kind of work I do in America. I served the U.S. Army proudly, 101st Airborne Division, and I chose to get into the financial services industry. And I said, there's a rumor going around that the company, you guys are not comfortable with me being Armenian, Assyrian, and Middle Eastern. What I like to do is I'd like to make this conversation today about the results and what we can do as a company, not me being Armenian, Assyrian. If we're going to go that route, there's going to be a problem. Yeah. What would you like to do with this meeting? He pauses for 5 seconds and says, I get your drift. I get your point. Got it. Fair enough. You guys got 1 year. No problem. He left. Meeting ended up being a 5-minute meeting. Wasn't an hour and a half meeting. It was scheduled to be an hour and a half meeting. It ended up being a 5-minute meeting. They walked out. We're doing business with them till today. It's one of the best relationships we have. When he retired after 38 years of being in the financial industry, one of the godfathers of insurance, we got him a yacht, and he had a few hundred people on the yacht in Miami. His closing speaker for his ceremony, there was 5 men, was his best friend of 26 years. The second closing speaker was me. He says, I want you to give a closing message, and I gave it to him. And till today, we have a relationship. So I earned my stripes based on results. I don't want anybody to judge me based on me being Middle Eastern, Armenian, Assyrian, any of it. So I can't stand it. But I'm going to give you the other side. I also didn't feel sorry for myself. You know, I stepped up and I said, look, please, I can't stand people feeling sorry for me. Yeah, I cannot stand people feeling sorry for me.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? No, I'm going to go get results. So that's my views. I don't know if that answers your question for you, but that's kind of my position.
No, I get it. I get it. And then the viewers listening to that, you know, I hope they get that as well, because I read right into it. I see exactly what you mean by that, and that story explains it and answers the question better than I could have asked. You know, is it one of these things with you about that story and push it forward? Is that what drives you? Is I'll be damned if someone's going to get one over on me, or someone's going to predict correctly on me and it be in the negative? Because that's one thing, you know, is it like, I'm going to show your ass? Is that kind of what pushes you through it? Or,
No, listen, Jordan said he had a memory of everybody that said any words to him ever. Okay. I mean, I've been called terrorist. I've been called jihad. I've been called turban head. I've been called camel jockey. I've been called all these different things, you know, to me. And I've been called that by everybody, white, black, Hispanic, Latino, in my own kind. I've been called all that. Guess what? All good. All of those guys today call me Mr. BetDavid. All of those guys are calling me for advice and counsel. That's the ultimate victory. My dad always said, if you can win arguments with results without your fist, you'll end up becoming a leader. I used to try to win arguments with this. Yeah. There's no point of winning arguments like that. So when you win, people have no choice but to do business with you. They don't have a choice but to do business with you when you're the best. And I think that's always the best argument, when you become the best at what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. The results, you can't argue with success, they always say. And it's hard. It's very difficult to argue. Someone's that successful that you can't really take that. You can't really, you know, jump on that so heavy. I mean, but you say you mentioned fighting with your fists. I mean, you're a pretty big guy, weren't you? What's your stats? You're
6'5",
6'1"?
240, 6'5", 245.
Yeah, and bodybuilding. How did you still maintain some good shape? I know you call the bodybuilding in the past, but I mean, what you got a routine now you stick with? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I still train. I was here this morning, 6 o'clock training, but I'm not, you know, when you're married with kids, I'm not trying to impress girls with my six pack or my chest or my arms. It's more about stamina, retention, being able to last a long time in business. When you got a wife and 3 kids and a couple businesses, your number one valuable currency becomes energy, and conserving your energy and being able to last a long time.
Well said.
So,
that's very well said. Yeah, the whole stamina changes. It seems like it's a whole different stamina once you start trying to do all this juggling, you know, and last long enough. And then lack of sleep. I mean, in college, here was my thing in college. Here's how I think I conditioned myself to require little sleep is, you know, the party life was, I didn't wake up into the party life until I got to college, truthfully. I've rarely partied in school, but, you know, just really wasn't my thing. I was focused on sports. But getting to college and I said I woke up in it and I didn't want to go. Yeah, I didn't want to go back to sleep. It was what I wanted to do. So, but this Jersey coach I was telling you about, his favorite time I think was 5 a.m. and that's starting. When you're trying to live a social and party life, and you know, like I said, I was there on both academic and athletic scholarship. You have to, you know, keep your grades up as well. Partying and playing sports and all this good stuff didn't really make for much if you want to get up early in the morning. You know, so I think I conditioned myself to get by on 2-3 hours of sleep most of the time, and that's what I compare it to so much today. Is when I'm, you know, I'll share it from all the time. It's just like you never sleep. So Sean and I'll be up some night zooming, just getting ready for stuff or something like that, and then I'll still get up at 5 and, you know, I wash the dishes first thing in the morning. That's my routine. 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm washing dishes, and I love it.
You married with kids?
Well, we're not married yet, but no, yeah, we've got kids. Yeah, we've got 2 in the house. You want to break my story down? That's gonna be another show. Oh. You're gonna love this. Yeah, no, I actually, you know, I'm pretty open about my oldest is just turned 16. Had her in college. You can put the rest of that story together yourself. And then the youngest one's 2, but there's one that's 4 in between, or she's not even 2 yet. So large gap in between them. I want to say I tried to learn my lesson in between. That's where the gap comes from, but I don't know.
So your runners have a mind of their own.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a 5 o'clock. Okay.
You got 5. I want to respect your time too.
I got 1 more minute. So I got 1 more minute till this meeting.
Do this. I want to dedicate that minute to yourself. Next 5 moves to master. As my promise to you, I was going to help you do this. I've got copies coming. I'm going to help you distribute this. What do you want to say about that book really fast for you guys?
Oh, yeah. So, you know, Your Next 5 Moves comes out August 18th. If you want to get a free chapter of it, go to yournext5moves.com spelled out, and you buy a copy, we'll send you a free chapter. The reason why I wrote this book is because right now with all the stuff that's going on with the pandemic, everybody will be judged the next 3, 5, 10 years based on their next 5, 10, 15 moves and in the right sequence of next 5, 10, 15 moves. And the idea is to know exactly, to have the formula of how to come up with your own next 5 to 10, 15 moves based on the kind of a life you want to live. If you want to be an entrepreneur, it's going to be a different 5, 10, 15 moves. If you want to be an investor, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want any of that stuff, it's different. So the book is written to share strategies of what to do next based on who you want to be, not what somebody else wants to be. So they can get this copy of the book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or go to yournext5moves.com to pre-order and get a chapter up front.
Thanks for your time. I know you have to run, Sean.
Yes.
Thank you,
I had a great
Mr.
time,
BetDavid.
You're phenomenal. Thank you so much for having me.
Been awesome.
Appreciate you.
Have a great day, sir.
Guys,
All right.
bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.